The countdown is on, but you're not alone. This is Countdown to College, your weekly guide from Education Quest Foundation, here to help you plan, apply, and pay for college one step at a time. I'm your host, Gage, and today I am happy to be joined by Kenna Urwiller, Assistant Principal at Scottsbluff High School. Hi, Kenna. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Now, today's episode is all about how to fail high school. Not actually. We don't want you failing high school, actually.
Right.
So, we're going to talk about the things that could potentially lead to you failing high school, though, so that you can avoid those things if you're careful. So, I'm talking sleeping through class, rarely completing homework, failing to prepare for exams, all that stuff. So, let's talk about why doing some of these things are important. So, Kenna, first question for you. From your perspective, how important is it for students to simply just show up to class every single day?
It's funny because it sounds really simple, just show up. However, I'm the assistant, I'm one of the assistant principals, but I specifically oversee our freshman academy. And this is my sixth year now in this position. So I've really kind of had the pleasure of, I see them come in as freshmen and we work through a lot of these challenges. And one of the really fun things is to see them walk across the stage and get their diploma. But with that being said, we know that there's been a huge spike in chronic absenteeism. I would say specifically over the last 5 years or so. But I recently we had a great speaker to open up for our district a couple weeks ago, and he stated something, and it just really resonated with me. And he said that one of his mottos or mantras is "Give yourself a chance." And like I said, it resonated with me on a bunch of different levels. But really, I've already kind of had that conversation with some of our freshmen. When I give our back to school spiel, and we want you here, but really, it is that whole idea of give yourself a chance. um, because I think often when we tell them just show up, because you have a whole bunch of people here and you have a big support system that we're going to help you through those challenging times, but you have to walk through those front doors. So yeah, showing up it sounds simple, but sometimes in some circumstances it is the hardest thing that students face. And so if we can get them through those doors, it's at that point it's really hard to fail, because we are going to help support you if you're here.
Yeah, that's something we always talk to students about college too, is that, everyone here wants to see you succeed. If you just
Hmm.
show up, they're
Yeah.
not gonna, especially in college, they're not gonna guide your hand everywhere, but they still want to help you succeed. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
and so we get students into the classroom. What do you recommend for students who maybe struggle to stay focused or alert during class time?
Well, I'm not sure there's a perfect answer to this question, or we definitely wouldn't be talking about it probably. But it is hard, for students who have distractibility problems, or they're unmotivated. We do see a lot of apathy. Uh, as I said, I work specifically with freshman students. So it's a pretty frequent conversation for me and for our team of teachers. But my recommendation to them is truly like break it down short term. And I mean short term. It might be chunking the class period, the day into class periods, or chunking the class period into 10-minute sections. Maybe it's simply telling myself, all right, I'm going to be focused for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to give myself a little break and come back to it. And I think some of this falls on us as educators. Some of it is, systematic things that you have in place, phone policies. Are the phones away? Is there, are we setting them up for success to help eliminate some of those distractibilities? But really, it is um, building good habits. And for some of our students, they come to us with, you know many years of bad habits. So it's working through and breaking some of those bad habits while building good habits. um, but just communicating, and I think a lot of that comes from a team effort from student and teachers and parents and counselors. So
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned I remember I'm someone who has ADHD, and so I remember like the period blocking, like 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off. Like
mhm.
that's something that really helped me even in college too, is like I can't remember. There's a certain study style where it's like you study for 20 minutes, 5 minute break, you're on
Yeah,
for
give
another
yourself a little
20.
reward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and so I
so,
think, it is. It's just that you have to kind of change your mindset that you're not looking at it necessarily like, "Oh my gosh, I've got to make it all the way to lunch," or "Oh my gosh, I've got
yeah.
to make it all the way to the end of the day." Nope, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes, give my we call them brain breaks, give myself a little brain break and then come back to it.
Another thing too that plays a lot into study habits and, staying focused is sleep habits, actually,
Mhm.
which, I mean, you get told a lot that, hey, you need to sleep 6 to 8 hours a night, but how can students actually improve some of these sleep habits to better support their learning and just their well-being?
I think this can be tricky because as an educator, it's probably pretty easy to say, well, that's hard because I'm not in the home, I'm not at home with them. But and I don't know that most people would answer this way, but I would say getting kids involved, making them active throughout the day, academically engaged, physically engaged, but really finding that accountability to where they want to be here and they are truly expending themselves through the day. I think that when a student is actively engaged through the day, it stimulates their mind, it stimulates their body, and so they naturally will start to form some habits by being tired when they go home at night. I think that, we all know what research says about putting away technology, putting their phones away. But even as a parent myself, I mean, I fall asleep. And so if my kid wakes up in the middle of the night and turns on their phone or video games, that's really hard to control and even know when it's happening. So I think, at least from my perspective and our goal as a school, and we talk about this a lot, it is finding belonging, getting involved and getting active in some capacity. Because I think then when your brain is stimulated, your body is stimulated, you are going to naturally fall into hopefully some good sleep habits.
Yeah, I was a very energetic kid, and so I definitely needed like I did track, in theater, and I needed
Yeah.
those to wear me out.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know, that there's not a magic solution. But I think we can all attest to when, there's those nights where we are, as soon as our head hits the pillow, we are asleep. And it's probably
hmm
because we've expended ourselves throughout the day and, in some form or fashion. And so I think, a lot of that, then you can start building those habits to where you're naturally tired and falling asleep at night.
Yeah. And I mean, that's even great for the transition to college too, because if you aren't doing, my
Yeah.
biggest advice is always get involved in college too, because as soon as you hit college and all you have is class,
Yeah, that's a good
and then
point.
yeah.
It's
So,
easy if you have a 1 o'clock class and that's your first class in the
yeah,
day.
yeah. And so let's shift focus just for a second to
Okay.
another kind of hot topic is homework, you
Mhm.
know. So why is completing homework regularly such a key part of academic success, as much as many students are dismayed by homework?
Yeah. And I think, for us and based on our grading system here, it's easy for kids to maybe not see as much value in their homework as they do taking the assessments or the big projects. But, going back to what we've talked about and building those habits, when I have those conversations with kids, and most of them have an interest, whether it's gaming or playing an instrument, playing sports. And we talk a lot about like, well, how do you get better in the things that interest you? And it always falls back to, well, I practice. I do it a lot because I like it. So when we're having those conversations, it's pretty easy to compare the two and use that analogy because that's what homework is. It's practice, and it's getting yourself ready to prove what you know during those assessments, those tests, those quizzes, and giving yourself the best chance to do well. So I think it's kind of reframing the homework mentality to this is practice. This is practice for when I'm going to need this information.
Yeah, I know the phrase, practice makes perfect is cliche sometimes, but it really
Yeah.
is so true, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to academics.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely.
Now, for students who maybe tend to procrastinate or feel overwhelmed by their, amount of assignments, what
Mhm.
advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I think, this can somewhat depend on the student. At the freshman level, I keep referring back to that because that's the team of teachers and staff and the students that I work primarily with. But our teachers do work really well, and they work tirelessly to help our students establish some good organization and solid organizational skills, and then hopefully build upon that. We talk a lot about time management, and I would say that probably a lot of schools do this because we know a lot of our students are involved in things outside of school. They have activities after school or a job after school that require their time and attention. So we do provide a lot of opportunities throughout the day and things that are just kind of naturally built in, whether it's a homeroom period, a study strategies class. We have time. Our teachers are here and they post their times before and after school. We have after school tutoring. It's never a punitive thing. We really do promote it as this is just an opportunity for you to get some things done. And that's a big piece of the conversation when I talk to students is when I leave here, I don't want to do work at home. I want to be engaged with my kids and in the moment when I'm home. So I make sure that when I'm here during the day, I'm using my time effectively. And honestly, that's a really hard thing for 14, 15-year-olds, probably even 16 through 18-year-olds. But really utilizing their time wisely. And so we work a lot on that. We put a lot of focus on that, especially at that freshman level. I think it's a catch 22 because when you don't do that, then when things start to pile up, it starts to feel overwhelming. One of the things we always do is the kid's not in this alone. We really come together as a team and we make a plan. We sometimes it might be we really focus, and this is what I always tell them. Uh, you're behind. You need to make up some work, but the reality is you need to be present in the present. I can't be sitting in geography right now and my teacher is teaching something, but I'm so worried about what I'm missing from last week that I'm working on that and I'm
Hmm.
missing what's in front of me. I often use that phrase: be present in the present, and then we will make a very specific plan for utilizing our time outside of class to catch up on the things that maybe we need to catch up on.
Yeah, it took a little while for it to click with me when I was in high school that my homeroom was not for talking, but actually for the
That's easy
homework.
to do, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, especially as because I was involved, like a lot of high school kids, in so many activities, and so obviously you
Mhm.
don't want to do homework when you get home from
Yeah,
days long practices and stuff. And so when it clicked for me that I was like, oh, I should actually be studying right now in homeroom,
yeah,
and then that
and it does, it comes with age
gave
and
me,
maturity.
yeah. And so tests are another big hot topic for students, obviously. How can students prepare effectively for tests, especially if they're feeling anxious or unsure where to start?
I mean, going back to everything that we've probably talked about and piggybacking off of that, I would say first and foremost, you got to show up and you got to do the work, even when the work is hard. And that sounds simple. And again, doing this for the last several years, I understand that just saying that doesn't make it happen for them. It doesn't just click because it's coming out of my mouth. But I think preparing for those tests, and it doesn't happen overnight, and that's when we really have those deep conversations about your teachers have planned this out. They have a strategic plan from the beginning of the school year till those test times to get you to where you need to be. And if you are engaged, and honestly, if you are just paying attention, and taking some of that in while you're sitting in class, the studying piece isn't going to feel like such an overwhelming thing. um, and so we talk about, and we have a class for freshmen. Every freshman, for the first quarter, they take a homeroom type class, a CATS class that focuses on organization, how to study and study effectively. And so a lot of that comes from just the collaboration with their CATS teacher, and a focus on that. I think, you mentioned feeling anxious. This is a thing. We have students that I mean, you've heard the term, the verbiage, test anxiety, or maybe not sure how to study. It's important to communicate with their teachers and counselors, because the reality is they're going to need help brainstorming ideas, or they would just already know how to do it. And it is something we really, really talk about, life after high school. And these are things you're going to have to learn how to do, beyond your senior year. And it really just comes down to communicating when they're feeling that way.
Yeah, we talk a lot about when we interview college students actually about what helped them be most successful, and they actually say a lot of the times it's building those habits early on in high
Mm-hmm.
school so that you can carry
Mm-hmm.
it on easily after you graduate.
Yeah.
And so, kind of staying in that lane, actually, how does a student's attitude towards teachers, peers, and just learning in general kind of shape their high school experience?
Well, we can probably all look back or think back on our time in school, and you remember the positive experiences, but honestly, probably the negative experiences have they leave a longer impression. And so we know as educators that relationships are the foundation for education. And I'm talking relationships between teachers and students, but it goes beyond that to our custodial staff. But even, peer to peer, we know that those relationships are so important, and that's kind of what shapes your high school experiences. We here at Scottsbluff, we put a lot of focus on restorative practices, because we know, we're humans working with humans. So there are going to be times of conflict, and times where a student feels like they're going through it, and so we really work hard to make sure that if there is, damage to a relationship, or something has taken place on both a teacher side or a student side, that we take the time to restore that relationship, have those conversations. And, we really, really talk about, there's a lot of kids in this building. You're not going to be best friends with everybody, but having a mutual respect for one another when, inside these walls, and understanding that you're all here to achieve. Everybody has different goals, but we're here to support one another with those goals. And so that is something that we really focus on. So when they leave high school, they can feel like they did have a good experience, even though maybe there were some challenging times. Overall, they had a good experience.
Yeah. And just like we talked about, like bringing that attitude into college, especially too,
Yes.
and even, I mean, careers and jobs,
Yeah, in
like
work, I mean, you're
relationships
gonna
are
have
always,
conflict. Yes.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And so, continuing still on that same lane of, having a good attitude and being open to learning, what does it look like to be like an actual respectful, responsible member of a classroom community?
I think that here at the high school, we strive for our students to find a purpose, a sense of belonging and accountability. A few years ago, we really came at it from a collaborative standpoint. And so we asked our students, we asked our staff, kind of all stakeholders within the building, like, what do you want from your high school career? What do you want out of high school? Same thing with teachers, but we truly believe that most everybody like wants to do good, and they want to feel good. We have a code, so we developed a code of ethics as a school. It's something we're really proud of. And it was, like I said, that collaborative effort between students and staff. But those are the goal of this effort was to hold one another accountable to what we decided we wanted for our students, our staff, and our school. And each student is responsible for that. We reference that a lot. Teachers reference that within their classroom. That signage is posted around the building. But everything we do kind of falls. It's all encompassing. Everything we do kind of falls underneath of those code of ethics.
That's great. It sounds like you guys are doing some really good work that I wish I would have had when I was in high school, but that's okay.
We
And
hope so.
so, Kenna, I have just one final question for you.
Okay.
If, maybe a student misses all these topics and points and they fall behind,
Mhm.
what should they do to try and get back on track? What's
Yeah.
the first step?
I think I said this previously, but really they need to reach out. But also, I'm really proud to say that we have so many staff members who we have our eyes on things. And so when this starts to happen, it becomes that collaborative effort. I think it's really hard for a student to know how to dig out of a hole. Even as adults, I mean, we can sit here, I use this analogy a lot. We can easily say, well, I really need to lose 20 pounds. But, we often fail. I mean, when, if somebody's on a diet, sometimes those diets fail because it's the implementation of the plan. We know what we need to do, but it's, having a step by step plan,
Mm-hmm.
being able to prioritize. That's what makes a plan successful. So I think, when a student has dug themselves into a hole, us saying, well, you just got to do this, this, and this, it doesn't resonate with them. And so it really becomes a strategic plan that takes more than just that student or that student and that teacher, but setting those small incremental goals and prioritizing, understanding, how bang for buck and what assignments I need to go back to redo that's going to make an impact. And going back to what I said, being present in the present, staying on top of what is being done in the here and now, and then finding times and setting a very strategic plan to go back and make up the things that need to be done to get back on track.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think that's all of my questions, Kenna. Thank you for
Okay.
joining us again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fun.
Yeah, you shared some great expertise. Everyone write down everything that Kenna said so you don't fail high school. And so, to our audience, if you ever need help with anything else college related, you can contact an Education Quest office near you for free help. You can find our contact information or schedule an appointment at educationquest.org. While you are there, you can sign up for our weekly Countdown to College email that's filled with college tips and tricks. Also, help us get out this message to as many students and families as possible by subscribing to this podcast on your favorite platform and hitting the like button on this episode. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.